She worked in silence. Every day before the sun rose, she was already on her feet, sweeping floors, folding sheets, preparing meals she would never taste. She had come to this country with nothing but hope and desperation, far from home, far from her children, far from the life she had once imagined for herself. He was the kind of man whose life was surrounded by luxury. Everything he touched sparkled. The mansion, the cars, the servants, all symbols of wealth, of status, of a world most people only saw in movies. He rarely looked at the people who worked for him, not out of cruelty, but because in his world, staff blended into the background like furniture, quiet, invisible. For months, they passed each other like ghosts. She kept her head low. She never complained, never asked for anything, never cried where anyone could hear. But at night, when the rest of the house went quiet, she would sit alone near the back steps, eyes turned to the sky. That's where she spoke, not to anyone around her, but to the one above. Not asking for riches, just for strength, just for the chance to return home one day with her dignity intact. One night he saw her. She didn't know he was watching. She was whispering something under her breath, eyes closed, tears quietly rolling down her cheeks. It wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic, but it was real. So real that something inside him stopped. He didn't say a word, just stood there for a moment and walked away. But from that night on, something changed. He began to notice her. How she took half her lunch and gave the other half to the driver. How she patched her old shoes instead of asking for new ones. How she greeted the dogs before she greeted the owners. How she prayed, always prayed. He started asking questions. Not to her, to himself. What did she have that he didn't? She had no money, no power, no name in this world. And yet, she seemed richer in spirit than anyone he knew. Without making a show of it, he began doing small things. A new pillow left in her room, fresh clothes in her size, a fan to cool her during the brutal heat. He arranged a surprise call to her family. When she saw her children's faces on the screen, she broke down, but still she said nothing, only mouthed the words, "Thank you," with trembling lips. He watched her that day and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Something close to shame and something closer to respect. She finished her contract quietly, just as she had lived in that house. No farewell ceremony, no pictures, just a note she left behind on the edge of the kitchen counter. It said only this: some people think wealth is in gold. Some people think wealth is in gold. I saw it in the way you finally looked at me as a human being. He kept the note, not in a drawer, not in a folder, but in his wallet, next to his bank cards, to remind himself that not every treasure can be counted. Sometimes the richest people walk barefoot. Sometimes the strongest people bow their heads, and the greatest stories are the ones that happen quietly while no one is paying attention.